Bank Holiday Monday. Welcome along to the match review between Fulham and Manchester United. Fulham won, Manchester United won. A great point, you have to say, because it was a chaotic game with lots of incidents and talking points and controversy, which of course is the Premier League. The Premier League will always have these moments because of VAR and the way that VAR is used. And I just thought some of the refereeing, and maybe more in particular, the use of VAR yesterday was an absolute farce. And that was really disappointing to see. But overall, before we go into the nuts and bolts of the game, I thought that the point, very much like last week, was a good point because Manchester United looked much better than when we've played them in previous games, or when we've seen them in previous games, no matter who they're playing. And these opening two games of United from United, they've scored one goal. In fact, they haven't scored a goal because it was an own goal. They've got 1 point, and everyone seems to be losing their minds about this Man United team. They still can't get over the line. But they were better, right? And they came close to scoring on a number of occasions. I mean, the game started in the first 22 minutes were so chaotic, where United could have been 3 up. Cunha smashes one over the bar, which was very, very close. And then Cunha hits the post, which is, another ridiculous chance, which was very, very close. Cunha goes through after a long ball over the top. Do you know what's amazing? Like, if he'd have scored that goal up against Anderson, where Bayindir puts it all the way up the top, over the top, he gets in behind with the touch and well, it's brilliantly saved by Leno, who also had to tip away a Fernandes shot as well before that. It would have been the exact same goal, or a very similar goal to a goal Wolverhampton Wanderers scored last season. It was Cunha, where the ball came from the defence, where it was a long ball over the top. Cunha took it down and scored. It would have been almost a carbon copy, albeit it came this time from Bayindir, the goalkeeper. But anyway, magnificent save from Leno, fantastic. Fulham had their moments as well. Josh King got sort of in behind. I think he was trying to play it across to Rodrigo Muniz, and the keeper smothered it and got his legs to it. Iwobi also had a volley, well saved by the keeper. That was Fulham's chances. But yeah, Manchester United had tons of chances before the penalty. Let's get on to the penalty now. It's ridiculous. The corner comes in, right? Shaw is on Muniz, and Mount is on Bassi, and Bassi just sort of not RKO, but sort of wrestles him to the floor, which I agree is a foul. But what about Shaw on Rodrigo Muniz, which is basically going on at the exact same time? Who Shaw then drags Muniz down to the floor, and everyone's saying, well, Mount could have got to the ball, and that's the reason why Bassi's impacting the player. The motivation, I don't think, was that. The motivation was to get the ball to the back post where Casemiro was, and the two players in the middle, as Match of the Day analysed it brilliantly, by the way. The motivation was for those Man United players to block off that path and grapple the Fulham players. And the Fulham players, or in this case, Calvin Bassey, is just reacting to being grappled in the first place by grappling back. It's incredibly one-sided. It's a one-sided way of looking at things, right? When literally less the yard behind him, Luke Shaw has got Rodrigo Muniz onto the floor. They all fall down in a huge heap, and it's a complete mess. And Rob Green makes the point, which I completely agree with him. It doesn't really impact the corner. It doesn't impact what's going to happen from that corner, and I think they're looking at it too closely. The VAR should have gone, well, there's a bit of argy-bargy between Bassi and Mount, but there's also Luke Shaw and Rodrigo Muniz, so surely it's equal. Therefore, both are fouling. Therefore, play on. It's ludicrous, by the way. It's ludicrous. Marco Silva sort of like sarcastically smiling. He then like sarcastically laughing about it after the game in the press conference and saying how ridiculous it was. And that wasn't even the last of it when it came to VAR. Half time, I was happy at 0-0. Oh God, the penalty then. Then he took the penalty, Bruno Fernandes, and It's still rising. I mean, it's an awful kick. This whole thing about Kavanagh sort of nudging Fernandes and Fernandes saying that he didn't apologise in that post-match interview with Sky Sports. Possibly one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in football. For a player to come out and say that. You're a grown man with an ego on 250, 300k a week. If you get a little nudge from the referee by accident, it's insane. It's Bruno Fernandes yesterday, and every time I watch him play, he's pathetic, right? That was as pathetic as I've ever seen from Bruno Fernandes. Absolutely petulant. He is a child on the pitch, constantly arms up in the air, constantly in the referee's face. He would, if I was a referee, I would just honestly, he's such a nightmare to deal with. He's just constantly whinging. Anyway, he then lashes it over the bar. 0-0. Fulham got away with one in terms of you've got an opportunity to score from 12 yards. They don't score. That's 2 penalties conceded in 2 weeks. One that I think was a penalty against Brighton, of course. One that I think there's a foul on Rodrigo from Luke Shaw. Therefore, it should just be equalled out as there's 2 incidents there. They're both fouls. Therefore, nothing given, right? So we go into the second half, and I'm thinking, well, Fulham weren't brilliant. United probably should be ahead. We need to up our game, but we've always got the options off the bench with Wilson, Raul Jimenez, Smith Rowe, Adama Traore still an option as well. Anthony Robinson was on the bench. Obviously, he came on. And let's get to what Diallo had a shot parried up in the air by Leno, and then the goal. Sort of let's go straight to the goal where essentially the ball comes in, and Yoro gets his head to it. It's going wide. Rodrigo sort of turns his back. I don't really know why he's doing that, but the ball goes in to the back of the net, and you're thinking, oh god, okay, 1-0. And then you look at the replay, and you're like, hold on. Yoro's got 2 hands on Calvin Bassey, who pushes him and completely takes Bassey off his stride, who is going to probably get to the ball, or at least the ball's coming towards him and Yoro to contest it. So we'll see what happens. But no, Yoro gets a clean head on it, or not. Actually, it wasn't even a clean head on it. He gets his head on it because of the advantage he has gained by pushing Bassey in the back. And the goal is obviously given on the pitch, and then you're going to think, oh, surely VAR, look at that. There's 2 hands in the back there. And they don't give it. I don't understand. If it's impacting the goal and the way the goal is scored, that is a clear example of impacting, or an incident that impacts how a goal is scored. If Bassey's not pushed, he jumps up with Yoro, he might win the header. The fact of the matter is, Bassey is already on the floor from being pushed by said player who wins the header, which leads to the goal. That is a foul. That's a foul. And Fulham, I don't like sitting here and moaning about referees, but in this particular game, in this particular 2 incidents that I've just spoke about, Fulham can feel very hard done by. And I don't think there's going to be many people who go in the comments and say, you're deluded, or I disagree. It's plain and obvious. It's clear to see. And I don't know what goes on. And sometimes we get these programs where we get to hear the audio from the VAR. Great, but it's not going to be very helpful because it's going to probably indicate how incredibly hopeless and incompetent they are when it comes to these situations. Rob Green summed it up brilliantly on Match of the Day. They got involved with the one they didn't need to get involved with, the penalty, and they didn't get involved with the one they did need to get involved with the goal. It's just ridiculous. It's lovable. And that's why Marco Silva came out and sort of just chuckled after the game, because he just couldn't believe what he was seeing. It's so bad. And people, and I'm a firm believer that you get some bad ones, you get some good ones, and something will go for Fulham at some point in this very, very long season. Maybe the case, or maybe it happened where the justice was done in terms of Bruno Fernandes missing the penalty, where it was probably never a penalty, and Fulham still getting a point from a game that they were 1-0 down in for a goal that probably shouldn't have stood as well. So if you want to see it in that way, that's fine. And the reason I'm not I'm not frustrated about the result. I'm actually very, very pleased with the result. I think we were playing say what you want about Man United, but they were, as good as I've seen them for a while. Yesterday, especially in the first half. Second half, this is the thing, Ruben Amorim said it after the game. They were trying to protect their league too much. They invited us on too much. Great for us. And subs made the impact in terms of Anthony Robinson, who basically is the reason why Fulham score this goal. He picks up the ball. Okay, first of all, Iwobi deserves an immense credit for one, winning the ball back, and two, putting the ball into the box. But it's Robinson who is on the outside, and I love the way these two work brilliantly. Robinson and Iwobi, they know each other so well. They're telepathic in the way that he makes the overlapping run, and that then detracts a couple of the Man United defenders, which opens up the space for Smith Rowe. And this is really intelligent from Smith Rowe to find that sort of gap and know to make the run, because Jimenez is the aim. Iwobi said it after the game. Iwobi is looking for Raul Jimenez in the box. And it's that teasing ball that we see so many times from Iwobi, right? Where it doesn't look like a very good cross in terms of if there's many, many men in the box and you're trying to find a man with a header, or, sometimes it can look undercooked. Sometimes it can look like but it's a technical, tactical way of crossing the ball where it's a floater and it's in that corridor of uncertainty. It goes beyond Raul Jimenez, it goes beyond the Man United defenders, and who's there to nip in and score? Emile Smith Rowe has been on the pitch for 90 seconds? Brilliant. 1-1, justice, feel like vindication, and I think Fulham deserved it. I think second half we were much, much better, and we're knocking on the door. We got in behind them a couple of times. Josh King went in behind, great tackle by Yoro before they scored. And yeah, Fulham were good, and there was a lot of territory and a lot of pressure in the final third. Tete was getting the ball in really good areas, flashed a ball across the face of goal, or actually got into areas where you think, from my angle, I'm thinking, oh my God, just shoot. But actually, probably a lot of bodies around, and if Tete goes for goal and blazes it over, everyone's going to be up in arms ready. But yeah, Tete did really, really well. And like I say, Robinson getting back and onto the pitch and being involved in that goal by making that run, the decoy run, and yeah, brilliant work from excuse me, brilliant work from Alex Iwobi, brilliant work from Emile Smith Rowe to score. Jimenez came on and was a bit of a handful. Muniz didn't have a great game. King looked a little bit rabbit in headlights at times, but I thought overall, the fact of the matter is we're playing him in these games, and I think this is incredibly positive. Lukic was unbelievable. Lukic was one of the strongest players on the pitch for me, for Fulham. And yeah, really, really pleased with the results. Maguire goes close late on. Fulham actually looked the more likely to score the winner with all the territory we were getting in the final third, albeit weren't creating the best chances. Couple of corners where Anderson almost got onto it. That was close. Certainly looked dangerous for them from set pieces, which is very encouraging to see. But yeah, Maguire went close. And then, of course, this foot raise, which came from a Fulham corner just to end the game, or near the end of the game. And Robinson, who's fresh on the pitch, absolutely sprints over to the other side of the pitch against Mbuemo, who's been on for the whole time, gets there and puts out for a throw-in. Brilliant work from Anthony Robinson. And yeah, Fulham, yeah, like I said, defensively, like not bad. Again, a couple of times where again they get in behind, and Man United got very quick technical players and Cunha's a class above. Cunha is Man United's best player. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes is fantastic as well in midfield, but in terms of that attacking threat going forward, Cunha's going to have a great season. I can see it. Sesko came on and did nothing, but Fulham's players came on off the bench and made impacts. Emile Smith Rowe, Robinson, Harry Wilson, I thought was lively, and yeah, really, really pleased, really pleased. And 2 points from 2 games, both coming from behind, so we both gained points, and these are 2 points that we didn't get last season. We lost to Man United at home 1-0. We lost to Brighton away 2-1. So without going into, because there's no point mentioning in the transfer stuff because that's just a completely separate issue right now. Fulham do need to bring in players before the end of the window, but just take it at face value, the game that we saw yesterday between Fulham and Man United, a good point again for Fulham, and I'm really, really pleased. I keep saying it. And then we have it. We're back again for a press conference tomorrow with Marco Silva ahead of Bristol City at home. Then we've got the game on Wednesday evening. Then Thursday, And then, of course, Thursday or Friday. I don't actually know when the Chelsea presser will be, but it could be Thursday, it could be Friday, and then we've got the game at 12:30, and then an international break. So a busy week ahead of a couple of weeks off, which will be nice. Of course, the deadline's looming as well. Thank you so much for watching. This is for Patreon and YouTube. If you enjoy this sort of content, there's plenty more on Patreon to subscribe. Subscribe. The link is just below, and in all my my socials as well. All my links are in my social bios and stuff like that. Thank you so much. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm enjoying doing the reviews once again. It feels good to be back. And have a good bank holiday Monday. I'm really pleased. 2 points from two. And I think Fulham were hard done by VAR, and we still came out with a point against Man United. And we haven't avoided defeat against Man United in the Premier League at Craven Cottage since 2010. So the narrative is turning yet again. Chelsea away next week is going to be very difficult. They scored 5 goals against West Ham, who looked hopeless. I think Fulham will have a bit more backbone to them in terms of defensively. But we need players in. We need players in so we can have more options off the bench. The squad's in a decent place, but we need help in the wide areas for sure. But Robinson coming on and really making a difference down that left-hand side was incredibly encouraging to see. I'm excited for the season ahead, and Fulham have got off to a decent start. And considering the fixtures that we had, you look at Brighton away, you look at United at home, to come out of them unbeaten, I'm very, very pleased, and to come from behind as well. Thank you so much for watching. We technically still haven't really conceded a goal from open play because it was an own goal by Muniz, and then obviously we conceded, and they scored the penalty last week, Brighton. So I'm taking that. But of course, Cunha, that save from Leno. We need to talk just quickly about Leno's performance. That save from Cunha, absolutely magnificent stuff. Really good save. Thank you, guys, for watching, and take care. Come on, Fulham.